Yo, 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 YouTube, what is up? Welcome to the BK Lounge. Today is Wednesday, November 6th, 2019. It is a Hump Day, Horns Day edition of the BK Lounge. Been a while since I've talked to y'all, so good to see everybody. Appreciate y'all stopping by. If you're watching this live, feel free to comment, hit the live chat, whatever's on your mind, any questions you have regarding Texas Longhorn football or basketball, and just other videos you want me to do. And of course, if you're watching this video after it's posted, feel free to comment below, and I will try to respond to each and every comment as soon as I can. Let's start with some Texas basketball. The season opener last night for the Longhorns at the Frank Irwin Center, the Drum, the Flan, whatever you want to call it. Texas gets a 69-45 victory. Nice. 69-45 win over UNC. Not that UNC. This is the University of Northern Colorado. The Longhorns not only get the win, but they also covered. Favored by 16.5. They win by 24. So a good start right there for the Texas basketball team. The story of the night, and maybe the story of the year in college basketball, is happening in Austin. And it started last night with the return of Andrew Jones, who was diagnosed with leukemia at the very end of 2017 and into the start of 2018, and had to deal with treatments. It ended up beating cancer, which is awesome. And he played in a couple of games last year at the very end of the season, but only got in for 11 minutes. Was a big part of the game last night and scored 20 points in nearly 30 minutes of action at the Irwin Center. Just a heck of a story. When he was diagnosed, nobody was sure if he was going to be able to live, let alone be able to play basketball again. And Andrew Jones kicked cancer's ass, and all of a sudden you're hearing reports as last year progresses that, hey, man, this guy wants to play basketball again, and he's doing whatever he can to get back onto the court, and his strength and his health continued to improve. And, man, I wasn't sure what to expect. I mean, before Andrew Jones was diagnosed, this guy was the leading scorer for the Texas Longhorns in that 17-18 season. I wasn't sure if it was fair to expect him to play at all, let alone to get anywhere close to that level he was playing before the diagnosis. And, man, last night he was incredible. Once again, 20 points on 8 of 13 shooting, went 4 of 5 from downtown. 18 of those 20 points came in the second half. Just an incredible scene. The Irwin Center crowd was going nuts, and this story has obviously taken off all over the interwebs, and rightfully so. So a tip of the cap to Andrew Jones, man. I mean, it's unbelievable. Love that he's fully healthy. It's just incredible that he's back playing basketball again, and he's expected to be a big part of this rotation for this Texas team here in 2019-2020. He's setting his own bar pretty high with the way he performed last night. Man, I think he's got a shot to be one of the better players on this team. We'll see how he progresses for sure. But that was awesome to see. Tip of the cap once again to Andrew Jones. Heck of a moment last night at the Irwin Center. His first bucket in 673 days. And he's only a redshirt sophomore too, so he's got a couple of years left of eligibility at the University of Texas. I mean, this story, not to take away from the journey and everything that Andrew Jones has come back from, but this story could go from just being an awesome story that he's back to, man, this guy might be the best player on this Longhorn basketball team, and he might be one of the better players in the Big 12 Conference, which is what he was before the diagnosis. I don't know if that's fair to expect, but man, once again, a hell of a performance last night, and it's just great to see him back there. Nice start to the year for the Longhorns. The rest of the team, defense looked great. Luke Yaklich, the new assistant coach coming over from Michigan, who was the assistant under John Beilein for a number of years up in Ann Arbor. The new look defense looked spectacular. I know you're playing Northern Colorado, so you take it with a grain of salt, but they held them to 27% shooting. UNC just 2 of 21 from three-point land. And look, this was a team that last year finished second place in the Big Sky Conference, and they averaged more than 76 points a game, and they averaged about 10 threes made per game last year. And they have 4 of 5 starters back from last year's squad. Now, their best player, a guy named Jordan Davis, he's gone. He's playing overseas. But Look, regardless of opponent, regardless of it just being Northern Colorado, it was pretty special defensive work by the Longhorns last night. Of course, Texas travels to Indiana to take on Purdue this Saturday night. The Boilermakers, the 23rd ranked team in college basketball. That'll be a much better test and a much better barometer of where this Texas basketball team is. But a nice start last night. Still some issues on offense. Everybody except for Andrew Jones shot a combined 3 of 22 from three-point land. The team shot 7 of 27, but a lot of that was Andrew Jones, and the Longhorns only got to the free throw line 5 times. So the front court, the bigs on this team, a question mark going in, and we didn't see a whole lot of production from the big guys last night. But Andrew Jones was great. Courtney Ramey, his shot wasn't falling, but he was aggressive, still getting to the cup. It was good to see him have a pretty good night as well. And no Gerald Liddell, who missed last night's game with a concussion. We'll see if he's good to go against Purdue on Saturday. But let me check the box score, make sure I'm not missing anything there. But overall, just a nice, easy win for the Longhorns in Game 1. We've seen some times in the Shaka Smart era at Texas where just far inferior opponents have given the Longhorns more problems than they probably should have. We did not see that at all last night. Matt Coleman, 10 points. I think he was -6 or something, so it wasn't the most efficient 10 points for him. But this is a guard-oriented team, and a lot of the guards showed out last night. So good start to the year for Texas basketball, and once again, it's pretty cool that the story of the college basketball season is happening in Austin, Texas with Andrew Jones. That's awesome. My man CB saying I'm early. Yeah, too many sports on these days, CB. Now that college hoops is back, the NBA, the NHL, you've got football every single night of the week this week. I got to watch TV starting this evening. So we're doing these videos a little bit earlier for sure. I mean, I got to start doing more of these videos. I keep telling y'all I'm going to do one of these like every day, and I think it's been a week and a half. I've got commitment issues. Just ask any girl I've ever been with. The commitment is a problem for me. So I got to do a better job of getting back to this for sure. So there's some Texas basketball. Now on to Texas Longhorn football. Once again, the Horns get back at it this Saturday at DKR, welcoming Kansas State to town. And the first college football playoff rankings came out last night. Kansas State only number 20 in the AP Top 25, but the CFP committee giving the Purple Cats some love. They are number 16, according to the College Football Playoff Committee, and they're playing some damn good football. They've won 3 in a row. They are 6-2 overall, 3-2 in Big 12 conference play. And the last 3 opponents that Kansas State has played, is the last 3 opponents that Texas has played. And the Wildcats are 3-0 against TCU, Oklahoma, and Kansas, and Texas is 1-2 against those same 3 teams, obviously in a different order. But K-State has been playing some damn good football. First-year head coach Chris Kleiman doing a hell of a job. I thought he was a great hire for K-State. I'm almost surprised he didn't wait for a bigger job than K-State. Not to take a shot at the Wildcats. It's a good program in the Big 12. That's an upgrade from the FCS level where Kleiman was coaching. I just figured a guy who had won 4 national championships in 5 years at a previous stop would be getting some looks from maybe some bigger places than Kansas State. But hey, it works out well for the Wildcats. Man, they haven't missed a beat. They look even better than what they were looking in some of the late years of Bill Snyder. His team is well coached. They are fundamentally sound. They are disciplined. And it seems like they're peaking at the right time right now. Of course, 2 weeks ago, the upset that shocked the college football world, knocking off Oklahoma. They were dominating the Sooners in the third quarter and into the fourth before the Sooners made a valiant comeback effort late that fell short. And then last week, K-State all over Kansas in the Sunflower Showdown, 38-10. And that game was never close. Kansas just had no answers for Skylar Thompson and the rushing attack for Kansas State. Even with K-State playing without its top 2 running backs, they were still able to rush for more than 3 bills against the Kansas Jayhawks. Of course, for Texas, Longhorns trending in the opposite direction, but Texas coming off a bye week. They get some guys back from injury. Looks like Caden Stearns is going to be able to go. B.J. Foster, both of those guys listed as probable in the secondary by Tom Herman earlier this week. And I think Tom Herman's going to be available tomorrow night. Todd Orlando and Tim Beck will be available tonight, but Tom Herman tomorrow night to hopefully provide a clearer injury update with those two guys, also DeMarvion Overshone and Jeffrey McCulloch and Jordan Whittington. But early indications this week was that you're going to at least have Caden Stearns and BJ Foster back, which would give you your 5 secondary starters if those guys are able to go. Your 5 going into the season secondary starters will all be healthy for the first time in a long time for this Texas team. Of course, the cornerbacks with Jalen Green being back. Anthony Cook has kind of elevated himself into that number 2 cornerback position. Brandon Jones, and now your safeties, Caden Stearns and BJ Foster. So if those guys are able to go, and if Jeffrey McCulloch is able to go, there's no more excuses for Todd Orlando. I mean, this Texas defense needs to turn some things around. They need to figure it out. Only 4 games left in the season. The Longhorns, to have any shot to get to Jerry World, are likely going to have to go 4-0 down the stretch. I mean, this team doesn't even control its own destiny. So even if they do go 4-0, they're going to need Baylor to lose to an Oklahoma or to somebody else along the final month of the season as well. But, we'll see. We'll see what the bye week did. We'll see if Texas was able to shore some things up. But at least the Longhorns are healthier than they have been in a long time. Meanwhile, Kansas State, they can't say the same. They lost their number 1 cornerback, A.J. Parker, a guy who started 20 straight games for the Wildcats, fractured a foot in the game against KU. He's not going to be able to go. Might be out for an extended period of time. Hate it for the kid. But, K-State a little bit banged up. I mentioned their 2 running backs. Missed the Kansas game. I think they'll be okay. All indications that they're going to play and be available at least for the Longhorns on Saturday at 2:30. We'll wait and see there. Texas 2-0 against Kansas State under Tom Herman. Last year, 19-14, the final score in Manhattan. It was the first Longhorn win up in the Little Apple since I was like 9 years old. And it wasn't pretty, but it was effective. The Longhorns went up 19-0 against Alex Delton, who went to TCU as a grad transfer and apparently left TCU earlier this week. And then they brought in Skylar Thompson, who, of course, is the quarterback now for K-State. Skylar Thompson nearly led a comeback victory for Kansas State. So he's going to be confident, and he's playing some tremendous football over the past couple of weeks for Kansas State. It really looks like he's got a grasp on this new-look Wildcat offense, which isn't completely different from what we've seen over the last couple of years from K-State. You'll still see a fullback. You'll still see a lot of 2 tight end sets on the field. You'll still see a lot of smash mouth, ground and pound type of football. I mean, this is a team that runs it 70% of the time on first down and more than 60% of the time on second down. They're the opposite of the Big 12. Move them to the Big 10. They don't do this spread stuff that you see from most of the teams in this conference. K-State dead last in passing yards per game at 171. I mean, that's it. And Skylar Thompson's a good player. It's not a shot at him, but they've just been able to run the football so effectively this year that they just don't have to throw the ball a whole lot. They want to beat you on the ground, and they have been doing that. That's how they beat Oklahoma. They won the time of possession battle. They dominated the time of possession battle. They kept Jalen Hurts off the field. That's what they're going to try to do against Texas. Obviously, the strength of the Longhorns is the offense. If they're not on the field, they can't beat you. So Kansas State 3rd in the country overall, by the way, in time of possession. I think opponents are only averaging 58 plays per game. 58 plays per game against K-State this year. They're just controlling the clock. It's frustrating as hell if you're a fan of the other team going up against Kansas State because you just can't get the football back. And Kansas State has been a very good football team in the month of November. How about this? Since 2011, when the Big 12 switched to a 10-team format, K-State is 21-10 in the month of November. That's a 700 or 70% winning percentage in the month of November. So K-State teams generally got better as the year progressed under Bill Snyder, and if the last 3 games are any indication, they are doing the same under first-year coach Chris Kleiman, who is trying to do something that no other Big 12 coach has ever done, and that's beat Oklahoma and Texas in his first year on the job. Which, hey, he beat the better of the 2 teams already. If he comes into Austin and leads K-State to a win, that'd be the first time that's ever happened in the history of this conference. That'd be pretty cool. And K-State hasn't won in Austin since 2011. I mentioned the Longhorns have won 2 in a row in this series, so Kansas State is going to be amped up and ready to go. And look, these two teams are tied in the Big 12 standings right now. So a very important game for both of these teams who both have goals to get to Jerry World for the Big 12 championship a month and a day from now. Don't want to use all of my K-State news and nuggets because we'll talk a little bit about the Wildcats tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll do another one of these videos. Some nuggets from Chris Kleiman, his press conference earlier this week up in Manhattan, talking about the Texas defense. He said they've got great length. They're really physical. They run to the ball really well. Look, he's not giving Texas any bulletin board material. I was kind of laughing, getting a chuckle when I heard Chris Kleiman say that because they're not really doing any of those things right now. Chris Kleiman also said there's pressures coming from all over the place, which, yeah, that's true. Todd Orlando is blitzing just about everyone on just about every play. That's showing up on film. I don't think Chris Kleiman meant that as a dig. That's what's happening right now. And those blitzes aren't really hitting home, but Texas has been trying to pressure from just about everywhere. And Chris Kleiman said, look, we're going to have to be able to run the football some, but we're not going to be able to run like we did against Kansas last weekend. We're going to have to find ways to throw the ball and move the ball through the air. Hasn't been a problem for most teams going up against this Longhorn secondary this year. Max Duggan was able to do that for TCU, Carter Stanley for Kansas, Jalen Hurts for Oklahoma as well. This is one of the worst secondaries in all of college football. We'll see if getting the guys back from injuries makes a difference. Chris Kleiman was also asked about Sam Ehlinger, gave him a ton of credit, kind of compared him to Jalen Hurts, just as a guy who can beat you running and throwing the football. Said he's a terrific competitor, a fun guy to watch, not as fun to prepare for. Kleiman also had some love for Devin Duvernay as well. Those were all the Texas questions that were asked to him. Kansas State, once again, their 3-game winning streak, a couple of things that they've done really, really well. They've just dominated both lines of scrimmage. I mean, their offensive line, 5 seniors. I think 4 of them are redshirt seniors. They've got a ton of beef and experience up front. Those guys are making things happen. They've just been physically better than just about every team that they've played this year. And also the defensive line, they've been winning up front as well, doing a great job against Puka Williams and the Kansas rushing attack last week. K-State was leading for the entire game pretty much, so Kansas had to throw the football probably more than they would have liked, but the Kansas State defensive front has done a good job as well. And look, Kansas State ranked second in the conference in scoring defense. They only give up 20.5 points per game. That will be a tough test for this Texas offense. And the Kansas State secondary is first in the conference, top 20 in college football in terms of pass defense. So the strength of this Longhorn offense, Sam Ehlinger, Devin Duvernay, Colin Johnson, how are they going to fare against the top-ranked pass defense in the conference with K-State? I mentioned earlier the number 1 cornerback for the Wildcats is out, so a little bit of an advantage for Texas there. Another stat, Texas is one of the best third down teams in all of college football. They're third in the country, converting 54% of their third downs in 2019. Kansas State, defensively, second in the country. They're only allowing about 25% of opponents to convert their third downs, behind only Wisconsin this year. K-State also the only team in the country to not allow a fourth down conversion all year long. I think their opponents are 0 for 9 against K-State. So late in games and on third and fourth downs, this Wildcat defense has been very, very impressive. We'll see who wins that matchup there. What else do I want to say today? Any more chats? Yeah, the purple kryptonite. Yeah, I'm doing this video early, so not as many chats tonight. Most of y'all are still at work, but I'll tweet it out later so y'all can watch. Another thing I want to mention, and this is when Kansas State is on offense. Like I mentioned, the Wildcats love to run it on early downs, 70% on first down, 60+% on second down. Todd Orlando's defenses sell out to stop the run, especially on early downs. Like that's one thing you've been able to say about Todd Orlando for his entire tenure at Texas. His number 1 goal, regardless of opponent, is to shut down the rushing attack. Teams have started to figure that out, that Todd Orlando sells out to stop the run on early downs. So we've seen a lot of teams throw it on first and second down. Now, that's happening at all levels of football more than it ever has, which is a good thing. Most teams are successful when they throw it on early downs, but especially against Texas, LSU, Oklahoma, Kansas, TCU, they all threw it on first and second down more than they usually do, and way more than Texas is accustomed to seeing. The only team that didn't, the only team that continued to run it early and often, was Oklahoma State, and that might have been Texas's best defensive performance of the year, at least outside of Rice. I don't expect Kansas State to just run it over and over again on first and second down, even though that's kind of their tendency with this Longhorn secondary going up on the road against a team that's favored by a touchdown. You've got to break some tendency a little bit, so it's going to be a test. It's going to be a little bit of a chess match. How comfortable is Kansas State throwing the ball on early downs? And if they're not, I think it's an advantage Texas because, once again, Texas does a good job of selling out to stop the run on early downs. They've been successful in that this year and under Todd Orlando over the last 2.5 years. So I think that's about it for today's video. We'll have more stats, news, and nuggets tomorrow. More of an official preview and a prediction we'll give later this week, tomorrow or Friday, but just wanted to give you all a little bit of information regarding Texas and Kansas State. The line continues to creep up in favor of Texas. I figured the opening line for this game would be about 3.5, but it opened at 5.5 to 6.5, and now the Vegas line, at least on my cousin's site, has Texas as a full touchdown favorite, a 7-point favorite against Kansas State on Saturday. I don't see it. I just don't see it. But Vegas tends to know things. And those casinos and hotels, they're there for a reason. They generally have a good beat on these games. But, man, it feels like these are two teams trending in the opposite direction. I'm not that confident. But we'll give the official pick tomorrow. Maybe we'll learn more from Todd Orlando and Tim Beck tonight. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. CB, appreciate the comments, my friend. Y'all have a good night. Once again, if you're not watching this video live, feel free to throw a comment in the comment section below, and I will try to reply in a timely manner. Like and share this video if you would be so kind. Subscribe to this channel for more Texas Longhorn football and basketball and baseball when we get closer information. Follow me on Twitter as well at Brad Kellner. All right, guys, appreciate the love as always. Until next time, y'all have a good one and hook 'em.